So my name is Senelia Sanabiki. I am the board chair of the league, and we are here with Ashton and Jan. Most of you all know them. So this is our last event of the 2020 year, and we are looking forward to 2021. So we're going to be doing lots more things, and we thought this would be a good way to close out our year. Of course, the league is committed to environmental justice. It's also committed to education and empowering communities, especially communities of color. So we are building out so that we can build up. So I think that's it. Ashton and Jan, you all know them, and then you all, of course, know Dr. Robert McAfee is with us as well. So I think that's it for our introductions.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Sana. And so for anyone who is just joining us or again watching after the fact, I just want to summarize what we watched real quick. So we watched Rising Tide Priced Out of Miami, a short CBS documentary. And in this documentary, it shows how Miami is ground zero for impacts of climate change. One of the most impacted places currently in the U.S. and all of the flooded streets and rising sea levels have brought what used to be right by the coast pricey real estate inward, and it started pricing out low income communities. And so real quick, before we dive in and start the discussion, what we want to hear from all y'all's thoughts. Real quick, I just wanted to talk about what gentrification is and what climate gentrification is. So I could give you, my own definition, but I really like the Urban Displacement Project definition. So I'm just gonna bear with me, read that real quick. So it defines gentrification as a process of neighborhood change that includes economic change in a historically disinvested neighborhood by means of real estate investment and new high-income residents moving in, as well as demographic change. It means not only in terms of income level changes, but also in terms of education level and or racial makeup of the residents. And again, we saw that, the Haitians in Miami were being priced out of their historical neighborhood. And so then as far as what climate gentrification is, it takes what, I just said as far as gentrification, and it adds that layer of climate change as far as why people are now moving into those neighborhoods. And just again, real quick, just talking about climate gentrification, it's, in Florida and elsewhere, but specifically Florida, it's one of 7 key threats as far as climate change goes, which is sea level rise, water contamination, hurricane increase, wildlife and habitat loss, coastal erosion, and politics supporting big industry over people. And you can see how all that feeds in to climate gentrification. And just in case, you watch that documentary and you're like, okay, Miami, but, where else can we see that in the US? Well, actually, after Hurricane Harvey, we saw that and are seeing that in Houston. And we saw that in New Orleans, and again, still seeing the repercussions of Hurricane Katrina to this day. And so, we're going to talk a little bit more about possible solutions as well. And Jan, if you don't mind sharing maybe some of the links as they are appropriate for some good articles we found. But anyway, so enough about me and monologuing here. Let's open it up to conversation. And I think we got a good group, so I think we can just stay in one group. But yeah, so first of all, I just want to hear from y'all. What struck you the most when you watched that documentary?
Well, may I speak?
Yes.
It reminded me of this other documentary, which we should watch.
Oh yeah, good one.
Have you guys seen this one? Come Hell or High Water. Have you all seen it? It's about Gulfport moving in on this historically Black community. Actually started just after the Civil War by former slaves, and it was a thriving community until Gulfport decided they wanted the land. And one interesting aspect of that is that the people who had been living there had a respect and understanding for the swampland that they were living on. No one else wanted it, but they valued it and protected it. And when Gulfport moved in, they just wanted to just pave it over. I mean, just to channel the water so that they could profit off the land. So it's just another perspective on a big area moving in on an environmental justice community.
For sure. Anyone else? What impacted you the most? Maybe, what disturbed you or even what you found hopeful? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I didn't see much hopeful actually.
Yeah.
What was so disturbing to me is that these people had built that Haitian community and had lived there for years and years. And I think anyone, especially the lady that they focused on that was retired and had the health issues, I mean, to think about having to deal with that at that point in her life where she had nowhere else to go and no more ability to earn money. I just think that was the saddest thing. And I'm sure that it wasn't just her, that there were many others in that very same situation because they'd lived there 20, 30 years or more. And to take that away from them is just unconscionable to me.
Well, one of the takeaways that I had, or I was thinking about, was it seems to me in Miami, they're moving inches inward to the high ground when they ought to be moving several hundred miles. I've seen some climate scientists in South Florida, some of the, and they've been meeting in Orlando, Florida, and they said if under today's projections, they've been telling the officials in Orlando, Florida, are you prepared to take on 1 to 2 million people by 2100? Because it's not just going to be Miami, it's going to be South Florida. So that's why I say a lot of these people through gentrification, it may end up working best for some of the poor people there, because maybe they'll just get out and go to some other area of the country, because by 2100, there's going to be a lot of migration down there.
Yeah, you touched on a very good point, and that's another issue, but obviously very much tied to climate gentrification is climate migration. And yeah, from what I've read and what I understand, we're just going to see more and more of that. And one of the questions we had for you guys is if you see any similarities to what you saw in the documentary here in Arkansas. And as far as migration, I'll point out, I was in school when Katrina hit, and I remember several new people in my school that actually came up from Louisiana to live in Central Arkansas. So, but have you guys seen any other similarities to what was shown here in Arkansas?
Well, in Fort Smith area, we had a lot of that migration here, and most of them were renters, so they didn't go back, and probably is the best thing for them, because they ended up finding that they had better paying jobs here than they did in Miami. I mean, in New Orleans. Down there, they were changing bed sheets for minimum wage, and here they were getting really substantial jobs in some of the areas.
Well, my neighborhood is starting to be impacted because they want to mine red dirt right in the neighborhood. And we've been fighting it Right now, the Quorum Court has gotten a little more conservative. They're very interested in making money for the county and have shown not that much interest for the concerns of the community. And part of our concern is that we're on Clear Creek. And so runoff from the red dirt mine would go into Clear Creek and damage that fragile ecosystem. That's one of the things that would be happening. And talking about migration, increasing migration into this area would be a demand for more building, and the county is going to want more building, and they're going to want more red dirt for building. And so it could just damage the entire ecosystem further.
Well, you know, Jan and Sana and anyone else, feel free to jump in whenever. But I would another thing we just wanted to know is, you know, the documentary did a good job of illustrating and depicting climate gentrification. And, you know, I gave that short definition of gentrification, but how familiar were you guys with climate gentrification before we watched this documentary?
I don't know. I don't know whether you'd call this exactly gentrification. I lived in St. Louis County during the Great Flood of 1993, and we didn't live that far from Chesterfield Airport Road, which was really what was most affected by the flood. And when we first moved there, it was very undeveloped. But after the flood, they built a 500-year levee. They gave businesses 20-year tax abatements. And so if you go back now, there are strip malls that go on for miles. There are strip malls that actually will have a Target next to a Sam's Club, next to a Walmart, next to a Home Depot, next to a Lowe's, and all strings of restaurants and 24-plex cinemas. And what happens then is that they're destroying the wetlands, which were supposed to stay as wetlands. And they're just pushing this problem downriver.
Yeah.
For sure. And, you know, another thing is when we think of, you know, some people, when they think of these flooding issues, they might think of Katrina, Houston, Miami, but it's not just a problem on the coast. As y'all know, you know, extreme flooding of the Mississippi watershed has occurred, you know, 5 out of the last 10 years. Just today, there was a report listed for the 2020 Mississippi River watershed report card, and I'll tell you guys, it doesn't look great, but yeah, that's another thing that, you know, we could see in the future as well with more flooding.
Isn't there an area over there in Fort Smith, Chrissy, that floods all the time? Right over there by Tillis. Is it by Tillis?
Oh, Tillis, yeah, Grand Avenue and areas like that. But I was thinking, like, you know, downtown, how they're trying to fix up downtown, and they're trying to expand it, and like over in that area, like it's not a bunch of wealthy people that live over there in downtown Fort Smith and like surrounding areas, but how they're trying to build it up and things like that. They've already tried to move out the homeless.
Yep.
And, you know, they've already tried to displace the homeless and everything. And so it may not be as severe as it is in Miami, but there's definitely some gentrification going on here in Fort Smith, as well as, you know, moving, just building up in the areas outside of like the more wealthier areas. They're really building those up, you know, so that, you know, people move more out that way as well. So I think that's
that area called down there. I forget now. What's that area called that everybody is white flight? Everyone's living out there.
Chaffee Crossing.
Yeah, Chaffee Crossing. Yeah, Chaffee Crossing. They're all moving out there because it's starting to flood over there on the north side of town, and people of color are starting to move a little bit towards the south, and you move a little bit towards the south, it gets a little too brown, and you move a little bit further out.
But the more they move out from like downtown and stuff, they'll start buying up those land areas so they can expand downtown area. And it's gonna be, and it's not gonna be for the people that's around it. It's gonna be for those wealthier people. You know.
Tell them what happened with the girls' club.
Well, the girls' club, it was on like the very north side of town, downtown, and it was for like the community, and the most community was like poor, you know, poverty individuals. I grew up at the girls' club, and what they did was instead of fixing it back up. And not only that, but like a lot of the elderly would come there in the early mornings and swim in the hot pool that was there. But instead of them fixing it up and things like that, they decided to sell it to the city to make it into a sports complex.
Mm.
But if you see the area that it's in, like that's really not what was needed there. The girls' club was needed there for the children to come there and have a place to come, like after school until their parents got home and things like that. And then instead they sold it to the city for $1. Then the city went and sold it to Future School to make Future School a school for kids to kind of offset public school, where they took public school funding to fund Future School. So, which was not something that they needed there. They really needed a facility there for youth to come and be able to have a place to go and do homework or just be safe and things like that.
They really did. You're right, Christina.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's all sort of kind of tied in. One of the things that struck me is when they ask him, how are you going to keep from changing the community while you're sort of and his response was, we're bringing in innovation and celebrating culture. And when you really unpack that, we're bringing in innovation and we're celebrating their culture. Now think about that.
Yeah.
First, who asked you to bring in innovation?
No one.
Second, at what point do we need you to celebrate our culture?
It's just using it for a marketing campaign.
You're literally giving us something that we never asked you for, and you're telling us we should be happy. We didn't ask you to innovate, and we didn't ask you to celebrate our culture. That's not what we need. What's needed is policy change. So always, your ears should always sort of perk up when you offer gifts and trinkets, but not policy change. Did you see when he was walking through the court? Look, we got free art. Look, we have basketballs. Look, we have all of that. Those are gifts. That's not going to change policy. That should always be like a red flag. Thank you for the gift. But what really needs to happen is there needs to be policy changes that says, you know, that we're sinking. Make a policy so that poor people don't sink faster. Keep your basketballs, keep your fine arts, keep all of that stuff. Talk to us about policy. That's what, and there was this smugness about, look at all we're doing. And also we added Haiti in the name of what we're doing. Did y'all see that?
Yeah.
We added Haiti. It says it in the name. So that's it. We just call it. That's it. You just add Black in the name and that fixes it.
And what really, and piling on top of that, what really made me angry is he said we gave them paint. So
I know.
I hate
houses.
that.
I said, what?
The houses look terrible.
I'm glad you recognize that, brother. I was like, did he really just say we hiked up their rent, almost kicked them out, and then we gave them paint?
So they could paint their own
So they could paint their
property.
own while we evict them.
Every time I watch this video, I feel so angry. I have to limit how many times I watch it. It's so disturbing to me. And just to echo what you said, Sana, when someone says, oh, I'm bringing innovation and I'm bringing culture, it's like, well, there's kind of like already innovation here and already culture. So what are you talking about?
Do y'all remember when Crystal Bridges was going in and Miss Walton was like, yeah, we're bringing culture to Arkansas? I remember, yeah, I remember that made me so mad. I was like, yeah, we have culture. Thank you.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I
she,
love Crystal Bridges, but still,
Yeah.
like,
so she
I
moved
was
to
wondering
Texas.
about the policy that they were able to raise the rents so drastically that there was nothing to prevent what is a
Mm.
400%?
yeah,
That's such a great point, Shelley.
for sure.
Rise in rent that was allowed. I mean, there was
Yeah.
no recourse for these people to.
And
Well, I
Since
think
I
that's
have
a
a
problem.
sister who lives in Florida, on the east coast of Florida, about 8 miles from the ocean, I know how drastically their homeowners insurance goes up every time there's a hurricane. Like they probably have a 1,200-foot house 8 miles from the ocean, and their homeowners insurance is like $2,500 a year. So I could imagine, I mean, not trying to defend the landlords, but after there are floods like these, who knows what happens to some of their expenses. I also have a friend in New York, she's really my sister's friend, who had a house in Long Beach that was really hit by Sandy. It was probably like a third of a mile from the ocean. It had been in her family for years, but everybody, in order to stay, had to put their houses up on stilts 12 feet. And so now we stayed with her when my brother had lung cancer. You have to like walk up 2 flights of stairs to get to her front door. But if people have to do things like that, if their insurance is doubled or tripled because they're that close to the ocean, or if they're required to raise their buildings 12 feet, then they can't charge the same rents.
And one of the resources that Jan and Ashton looked up, and I think they're in the chat, they're really good. They talk about during climate crises, richer people get richer and poorer people get poorer because of their insurance and because of the way the money is dispersed. So even that, in a natural crisis like hurricane, there were people who own property who walked away better off because of insurance. But if you're a renter,
Right.
you get poorer. And there, in one of the articles that the girls looked up, they talked about that the credit score falls like 15 to 20 points. Just because if you're renting, then you're likely working a job, an hourly job. So you lose your job, you lose your house, you can't afford to pay for your expenses, and your credit score actually drops. Whereas if you're already rich and a property owner, your credit score increases every time there's a natural disaster. So if inequity is built in the system, it doesn't get better because of a disaster, it actually gets worse. That's why policy is so important. If you have policy to make things equitable and equal, when a disaster hit, it doesn't disproportionately affect poor people. It just doesn't.
And
Does anyone know of any policies that have been proposed in the House by maybe Ocasio-Cortez or someone like that to protect environmental justice communities?
I don't know of any by Ocasio, but I know the mayor that's in Florida, he lists several things several solutions that they are doing. And one of it's called climate resistance. And this is also in some of the articles that the girls curated. So a climate resistance policy, basically it looks at the policy to make sure that the poor people have the funds to redo their homes without necessarily, they haven't been figured out a way to get it to renters yet, but poor and lower income homeowners, it's a policy so that they can get the equipment that they need to make sure their house is weather resistant and climate resistant without kicking them out and going into bankruptcy, because it's really expensive to make your home resistant to climate change. That was one of the solutions.
I think that's in the last link that I put in the chat about how to make climate response better. there's a
Yeah.
typo in there, but I
Those
think that's the
articles
link.
are super, super, super yummy and not hard to read at all. The girls did a really good job of curating them. They're real good.
And I just want to step in real quick. Charles has had his hand raised via, I don't even know how to do that. Zoom hand raised. Charles, do you still have something to put in? Sorry about that.
Well, if I raised my hand, I was probably scratching my nose. So.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah. Okay, well, I'll just play off of what Sana and y'all have been saying. That's one of the solutions. Affordable housing for renters is freezing rent for current renters in an area like Miami. And you know, in the video, they talk about the landlord was saying, well, the judge looks at, you know, housing prices, but to really part of the solution to climate gentrification proposed just in general by, you know, researchers is to have below market value homes and rent frozen for residents that already live there. So that's one solution. And I also wanted to bring up a topic too, since we're talking about, you know, when we're talking about the gentrification and changes in Fort Smith, you know, one of our missions is to come up with equitable solutions to climate change. And sadly, a lot of solutions bigger cities like LA and Chicago are coming up with, you know, they might be green, but they're inequitable and they honestly benefit wealthier residents and a lot of times end up pushing out poorer residents. So, I mean, that's something, you know, policy definitely needs to consider. And that's why it's so important to have, you know, diverse representation and to hear different voices. Because if you're just being like, oh, well, this is green, and trudging forward without realizing how it's going to impact all residents, you know, then that's where people get pushed out.
I saw a Facebook post, of course it's not news, but I thought it was really interesting. It said proof that the trickle down method doesn't work. It said Amazon, Jeff Bezos has wealth has increased by 200%. And then go look, did somebody see that? Yeah, it's increased by 200%. And there are also just as many people who are filing for unemployment. Mm-hmm. So if the trickle down system worked, wouldn't all of that Jeff Bezos is making trickle down and there would be no unemployment? Proof that it doesn't work is that, look, we have two different economic systems at play.
And I think, Sana, just to build on that and to draw on something that Chris McCrae said earlier, is, you know, climate change is said to make every single problem that already exists worse. And I think that's one thing for me that this video really brought home. You know, Chris, you mentioned, you know, Tampa being told, y'all better be on alert for however many 100,000 refugees. You know, that's something real we need to be looking at. And so unless we can get a handle on climate change and we need a better handle on climate, get our emissions down, and we also need better, even if we didn't have climate change, we would need better public policy to address issues of inequality, racism, environmental degradation, infrastructure problems. And so we have a lot of work. There's a lot of things that have to happen.
Yeah.
Well,
and I think for me, one of the things is that there's got to be, and maybe, and I've just thought a lot about this, that I think as human beings, a lot of times we learn through crisis. Like maybe that's the only way we learn. But we've got to have a shift of values to recognize that the only way we're gonna all move forward is if we make sure that we all move forward. Mm-hmm. And that's not the way the thinking goes now.
I thought it was really a moral issue when the lawyer said, when you're standing before the judge is not going to look at your lease. he's going to look at the market value of the property.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what's
You're
the point of a
talking to
lease?
most everyday people. That lease is the only thing they have that keeps a roof over their head. They know nothing about the market value of the house. So if the judge is looking at the market value of the house and the tenant is looking at the lease and the tenant has no idea what the hell a market value is, to me, that's a moral problem.
Exactly. And I think the other part that really irritated me about that, Sana, was that why was the woman's attorney telling her, oh yeah, pay the $700? Like, surely there must be some, I don't know, maybe there's no other legal intervention possible, but where's that woman going to come up with $700?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure like Florida, the renters' rights are probably non-existent.
Yep.
You know, there is no right for a renter.
That's why, yeah, like one of the problems that Florida faces, you know, one of those 7 threats is political, you know, just straight up politics, because they favor big industry and business.
Well, in Arkansas, one of the worst renters' rights states.
Yes.
The worst.
Yep.
Yes.
The worst in the country.
Yeah. So
How
that's
are
a
they
commonality
measuring
we
that?
have.
I would like to see how they're measuring that. Looks like Shelley has something.
Well, but Lynn Foster has a bill in the legislature that's coming up for fair tenant landlord laws. So we should be following that and supporting her in that legislation.
That was voted down in the last state legislature. You know, things like you should be able to have a door that locks. You should be able to have running water. I mean, like basic things like this. And the Arkansas state legislature voted that down in the last session.
Are you serious? I did not know.
Yes, I am serious. This is an issue that the Citizens First Congress worked on, and you know, the League is a member of Citizens First Congress, and I'm really hoping, well, we really need to, one of the things I'm going to be working on in 2021 and actually at the end of this year is getting our rapid response network ready, because these bills are going to be coming before the state legislature, and we need to be able to call our representatives, our state representatives in Little Rock, or if they're meeting virtually, they haven't figured that out yet, and make our views known. And we need to expand our network and work with Citizens First Congress to block some of the worst bills that are going to be introduced and to lift some of these better bills that are going to be try and get passed. It's going to be challenging.
Yeah.
Let me do a plug here then.
Please do.
We're plug. The Climate Change Forum is going to be meeting January 3rd, and for January, it's 1:30 on Sunday, January 3rd by Zoom. And this, for January, we're inviting the people who are proposing various bills, the energy bill and various social justice, economic justice bills, education bills, the fair tenant landlord bill, criminal justice bills. We're going to be having the people who are promoting these bills talk and do presentations on this. And so we've also asked them to suggest letters that we can send to our legislators. So if people can come to that, it will be Sunday, January 3rd, 1:30. There will be a Zoom. Let me know if you want to come, and I'll send you a link, or the link will be on the Omni website. People want to
Okay, we could post that on the League's Facebook page.
Okay, that'd be great.
Put it on, yeah, we can, yeah.
And
Does
share it with our
anyone know,
members.
is it the way that the United States Senate is, like where McConnell can block any bill in the state legislature? Is there someone kind of who's in charge of each house, who of course is a Republican, who would look at these bills and say, well, we're not even going to allow them to come to a floor vote? Does that happen here?
Yes,
In committee.
it happens in the House or Senate committees
Yeah.
every day.
Every day.
Do
They
they
can-
So
But
I
on
guess
committee.
that most good bills don't even get to the point where they can be voted on then,
Yeah.
other than committee, it sounds like.
Right.
Well, in the Arkansas legislature, on average, there's 3,000 to 4,000 bills introduced. So, and maybe 100 get voted on.
Yeah. Yeah, I was sitting in a committee last legislative session, actually on wage theft, which Mike and I are working on this year. And it wasn't wage theft, it was pay stub. That's another thing that we're working on. And one of the legislators on the committee said, well, it's just too much trouble. I just don't want to do it. And the whole committee just voted it down.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, but something like renters' rights. I mean, do they ever give any justification for just?
Yeah, here's their justification, and this really disturbed me. It may disturb you. They voted it down because of the landlords. The landlords were lobbying them because the landlords didn't want to have to improve their properties.
And they feel good about that?
Well, they just feel greedy about that. So on the one hand, like in our neighborhood, one of the things, we live in a right near the university in Russellville, and it's, kind of a mixed neighborhood of rentals and home ownership, and a lot of the older rentals are being bought up and made nicer. But there's some houses, a couple streets over from us, like, I don't know how people can live in them. So on the one hand, you got landlords who are actually investing in their properties, and on the other hand, you just have people who's like, it's horrible.
Because they know that there's people lined up who need places. So if people leave, they make more money turning over.
Yep.
Like that. I actually recently, and this might seem like a detour, but I mean, it's all, it all plays together. But anyways, I recently read a book called Evicted, which is a really good read. Y'all should check it out. But it's about that. It's how the, Sana talking about, policies and how the system is in place. I mean, it's beneficial for landlords to do things, to not fix property and to leave out appliances, because if they don't have those appliances, they don't have to worry about them being up to code. The way the system's set up in a lot of states, including Arkansas, really decentivize landlords. And if they're in it for the money.
Arkansas is the only state that doesn't have a basic renter's rights.
Yeah. And I linked two articles. I linked two articles in the chat. I think they're really important. I'm biased because they're written by my best friend. But she does a lot of reporting on renters' rights issues and has been physically threatened by people who work for landlords. So, she's doing her job right. Anyways, one's from 2018, but not much has changed. And one is how people are still being illegally evicted this year during COVID. So,
wow.
There's another aspect of this is that people who rent aren't incentivized for energy efficiency, because they're renting. The landlords aren't incentivized for energy efficiency because the renter is, they're paying for the electricity. So, but I did talk to an electric company about this, and there are policies that can be put in place that would incentivize a landowner to become more energy efficient or to even do solar power. So this kind of a policy should be considered.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think the operative word, if policy doesn't change, trinkets and gifts won't matter. I mean, it's really got to be policy, and it's got to be equitable, and it has to center the experiences of people of color and the poor. Otherwise, we're just going to be putting a Band-Aid on a bigger problem.
And this is why it's so important for us to be involved on a state level this year.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And if I could just get a little political and put in a plug for doing something about the Senate race in Georgia, that might be a good idea too.
Yeah, there is plenty of work on the table, so we cannot in any way get discouraged, because there's work to do. That's why I'm so proud of the league, so proud of Fort Smith, so proud of the work. We're in it, we're doing it. I mean,
yeah.
we can't stop, man. We can't stop. We got people gonna be in the ocean if we stop.
Yeah. Well, and I would like to just throw out there that, the league is a nonprofit and we're nonpartisan, but we all have our different views, and we have a pretty diverse crew as far as that goes. So, yeah.
Would you
So
repeat would someone repeat what you were saying earlier? I can't quite remember it, about an environmental justice community in Fort Smith being forced to relocate to another area. Were you talking about that, Chrissy?
I think I was talking about maybe downtown, how they are trying to develop downtown area.
And so they're forcing people out so they can develop that area.
Well, they have forced the homeless out of there for sure.
Force the homeless out.
Start develop, yeah, but I said around the downtown area is like more of your areas of poverty, and you know, there are some, you know, homes down there that you know are older and cost a lot of money, but for the most part, that area around downtown has those who are like at poverty level, or you know, has a little bit of money. And once they start developing downtown, they're just going to go out and out, further out, which is going to be pushing those poor people out of that area.
They're renting right now. They
Yeah.
can be forced out.
Right.
Well, many of them are just homeless on the street.
And a lot of them are homeless, yeah. And if you see some of them houses down there, even those who living in houses, they're, like she said, they're pretty terrible. Like you just can't imagine how people live in homes like that, but they do.
Are there any advocates for the homeless at this point besides the league?
Well, we had Sharon Chapman of, was it Next Steps, on our environmental justice call earlier this year. So her organization was definitely advocating for the homeless.
I know
sure there's others.
And they've been wanting Next Step to
They've also had to
relocate
move.
somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah,
They
they
moved
tried to.
once already. They've already moved once, and then they
Yeah.
want to move.
They want a Next Step to move way out somewhere where the homeless are not.
They
Yeah,
want, yeah.
exactly.
They were not even there.
They do not want the homeless downtown. And I don't know who they is, but whoever they are, they don't want the
All the
homeless
people
down.
that are working on the downtown area,
Administration.
kind of.
Yeah,
And the property
360,
owners downtown.
whatever their project is, all those individuals.
they, because remember 2 years ago, they moved the benches.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Oh,
Speak up more about the benches being moved.
Yeah, they moved the benches so that they didn't have any place to lay down or sit.
well, you know, they found a way around that, because I've seen a lot of them laying under the bench. Yeah. Because you know they put that thing right in the center.
In the
where
middle,
you-
yes.
But you know, the thing of it is, we just have so many homeless people now, and they have to be innovative to. In the shelter there, what's it called, Hope Campus? You know, there are stipulations for you to stay there,
In any shelter.
and not everybody can abide those stipulations. And plus, you're all in this.
It's not safe for women.
It's not
It is
safe
not
at
safe for women.
And
Yeah.
you go there, and I've taken a tour. They let me come in and take a tour, but that is just not enough support for homeless people there.
Yeah.
And it isn't safe for women. And
It's not safe.
you know,
I would not
well,
recommend anyone go to Hope Campus. We've had to get too many women out of there who were not protected, and who were, and if you get blackballed at Hope Campus, this is just how much power Hope Campus has. If you get blackballed at Hope Campus and they kick you out for whatever reason, then you do not have access to any other facilities in Fort Smith. Not day room, not Salvation Army, not any other, not the rescue mission. If you get blackballed for any reason out of Hope Campus, then you cannot go to any of those other services. And I think that's, I don't agree with that.
That's criminal.
I don't know how they'd know. I mean, if you.
Oh, they call around.
They call.
They
Yeah.
call
We
around.
only have 70, we only have, at the time, we only have 75 homeless on the books. We might have more now, but at the time, we only had 75. And we've had to go and find houses and put several people in a hotel because they could not go to stay anywhere because Hope Campus left a pretty bad mark on their name.
It's for substance abuse, you get blackballed.
No, I think if you tell like I was there and I was treated unfairly, or I was there and they locked, because there have been stories of them locking people on the in from the inside out. So there's
They
not a,
always lock the doors every night at a certain
yeah.
time. It's
So
locked.
you
You're
can't
locked in.
Together.
you
Yeah.
cannot get in out. If you're a woman, you can't get out. So you're not supposed to lock them in, but they don't have staffing either. And it's like a big gym with men
Mhm.
and women, mental ill, those with mental ills, those with substance abuse, those dealing with drugs, all in one area. And it's just simply not, it's not safe or sustainable.
Well,
And I would wager there's a whole bunch more than 75 homeless
Yeah,
people. Now, there's a
Yeah.
lot of homeless people.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
can
You're
see
probably,
them everywhere downtown, and
yeah,
they're
they're
having.
probably, yeah. And a lot of them are coming from Oklahoma because, Oklahoma didn't have the extended Medicaid.
Mhm.
A Medicare, yeah, didn't have it. And
Medicaid.
so, yeah, so they're having to come to Arkansas, which did. So, yeah.
They're sleeping under. That they can't do things out in the open, but along the Arkansas River banks, there's a lot of like bluff areas. They will actually get up under those uh, to sleep and stuff,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
so that they're not right out in the open. They're not as exposed to
yeah.
danger and so forth. But they're sleeping all over the city now.
All over the city,
That
but
aspect of the town.
Yeah.
over here by Walmart, they're sleeping
Having,
behind
yeah,
well,
Yeah, everywhere. Anywhere there's a train track, there's
Mhm.
probably a homeless campus.
having affordable housing that's resilient to weather is just, it's
mm,
priority. And I mean, it's one of those things that if you don't have affordable housing, if it's not weather resistant or resilient climate, it's going to compound issues.
well, guys, I really hate to interrupt because this is a discussion, worth having, and needs to be continued. But it is nearly 6:50, and we had budgeted about 30 minutes. And I'm sorry that I'm the host of this because I have another meeting I have to go to. So, yeah.
Ashley, can I make one quick ask?
Yes.
Because we are heading into the state legislative session, if you don't know who your state senator and state representative are, if you could look those up, so you can know. And don't worry, I'll be reaching out to you.
Yeah.
I took a screenshot. I know who's here.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
thank you all for supporting the league, and I hope you stop by our Facebook page. And if you like the work that we're doing, we're going to continue with that. Drop a few coins our way so that we can continue to move forward. We would certainly appreciate it.
thank you all for joining us, and I hope you have great holidays. This is our last event of the year, so we'll see y'all. Yeah.
If you want to save the links in the chat, you can do that. At the bottom of the chat on the right-hand side, you'll see 3 buttons in a row. And if you click on that, there'll be an opportunity for you to save the chat and you'll get all those links.
Yeah, and I'll send them in the follow-up email, thank you email as well. So.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you all.
All right. Call me. I love y'all.
Good night.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for being here.
Happy
Bye,
holidays.
everybody.
Thank you,
Happy
Ashton.
New Year.
You did a great job, Ashton. Thank you.
Yes, guys.
Thank y'all for coming.
Good to
Bye,
see
everyone.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.